All right, guys, I'm gonna bring this in. The jury has reached a verdict, apparently. So we're gonna go live and we're gonna talk about this, and we're gonna see what's up. So we are live and broadcasting from the Black Swan Media Studios. My name is John Crump, and we're gonna find out what the hell's going on here. Wolverine's mother, yeah, you know. I'm gonna call Rich here and tell him to get his ass on here. We're up. All right. All right. Bye.
Any of the other judges are welcome. That's the only exception. By the way.
Oh man, that kid does not look happy, but I fully understand. Oof. All right, I'll send Dark a link.
I gotta monetize my stuff.
Oh shoot, the whole monetization.
Yeah, I got like a video with like it had like 15,000 views, and I forgot to monetize it.
Sucks for you.
I know, sucks for all of us. How many people got watching? 119 people. It's pretty damn good.
Okay.
My name is John Crump. We are watching the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. The jury is back, and we should know what the hell's going on pretty soon. Thank you all for tuning in and choosing my coverage of this. I sincerely appreciate it. If you're watching on the Flying Rich channel, the Dark channel, or whatever.
In the audience portion. No, it doesn't need to be. There can't be any reaction at all, no matter how strongly you may feel. And it's understood that many people do have strong feelings, but we can't permit any kind of a reaction to the verdict. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of law enforcement here, and you will be whisked out of here if there is any. So just be aware. Okay.
Hello?
Would you go down, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
We have been waiting for this.
Since Monday.
We covered the whole thing, and I really appreciate all you guys for choosing us. This kid's life has changed forever. Let's see.
Oh, I can't look at his face. That's so hard. Nobody who's that young should go through this. Then again, we send 18-year-olds off to war and younger.
All right, members of the jury, have you elected a foreperson? Would you give your juror number, please?
54.
54. And has the jury reached a verdict as to each count of the information?
Yes, we have, Your Honor.
One verdict and one verdict only.
Yes.
Would you hand all of the paperwork to the bailiff?
Oh, gosh, he's not guilty then.
Everything.
If it's one verdict, he's not guilty.
May I see that too, please, Mrs. Chairman? Thank you.
No, I'm not going to write about this. I was going to write about it, but so many people going to write about it. I'm asked to write about it just because I'm sure there's other people going to be writing about it.
The defendant will rise and face the jury and hearken
Thank
to its
you.
verdicts.
What is up, Dark, my friend?
I'm just.
All right, shh.
We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty.
Ah,
As
yes.
to the second count of the information, Richard McGinnis, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty.
Boom.
As to the third count of the information, unknown male, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty.
Boom.
As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty.
The jury, these are unanimous.
He's free.
Is there anyone who doesn't?
Free
agree with
AF.
what That's read.
Look at him.
Okay, folks, your job is done, and we
He
started
said we did it.
about
did
3
it.
weeks ago, and
Wow.
I told you it could last 2 weeks and 2 days. This is 2 weeks. This is 3 weeks. You were a wonderful jury to work with. You were punctual. You were attentive. And the forgotten six over here who had a very difficult
Wow.
job of keeping from discussing the case during the time that they were sequestered as well.
I feel so
All of
good
you,
for the
you
kid.
just- I couldn't have
I
asked
know.
for a better jury to work with. And it has truly been my pleasure. I think, without commenting on your verdict, the verdicts themselves, just in terms of your the attentiveness and the cooperation that you gave to us, justifies the confidence that the founders of our country placed in you. So I dismiss you at this time. You're never under any obligation to discuss any aspect of this case with anyone. You're welcome to do so as little or as much as you want. The media have requested, a number of media sources have requested the ability to talk to you, and they have been allowed to present presentations to you that you'll get in writing, and it's entirely up to you whether you want to contact them. They are not to contact you. If anyone does contact you and just tell them you're not interested in discussing it, if that's the case. And if anyone persists in doing so, report that to us and it will be addressed.
Not guilty.
Sure.
All counts.
At the beginning of the trial, there was some concern
Free
about
TVs in Kenosha.
information and your safety. And I assure you
Not
that
guilty
we will
on
take
all
every
counts.
measure to ensure that that is your concerns are addressed and respected.
Whew.
I'm going to talk to you for just a minute, not about anything to do with the case, but just about that sole issue. And
Wow.
That is
you, as they
awesome.
say, you're welcome to discuss the case as little or as much as you want.
Hell yeah, Dirk.
Any questions, anybody?
Oh, I probably need to
Thank you so
spell
much.
right.
Not guilty.
And you're after 4 years, you're eligible for service again. It would be my pleasure to work with you. Thank you. Yeah, please. Or in the they can attend the library. It's not going to be more
He's
than a
going to
minute.
go
Or maybe it will
take the
be.
judge's hand.
Yeah, take them upstairs. That's fine. That's fine.
Are they crying at MSLSD and CNN? Is the judge really going to say, attaboy kid, throw the AR at him?
I mean, he will get it back. Just for the record. Yes, not guilty on all counts. Not guilty on all counts. I hope there's no rioting. You were hilarious.
Dude. Yeah, all right. So I don't know what Razor JB knows or if he's psychic. Like 15 minutes ago, he says they're going to come back in an hour. I'm like, serious, man? How do you know?
He
Mr.
is,
Richards,
he is psychic.
any word from the state?
The jury has immunity in this trial and has spoken.
All right, the motion of the defendant is granted. The charges against the defendant on all counts are dismissed with prejudice, and he is released from the obligation of his bond. Anything else?
Not guilty on all counts.
Thank you. Good
That
day.
is incredible.
Dude,
I was not expecting that.
I didn't expect it. I look, if it was a jury of, Black Swan Media people, yeah, then it would have taken us 10 minutes. We'd be like, do you want to stretch this out to get a free lunch, or you want to decide now?
Yeah. Man, I'm just so happy.
Oh, it's very meaningful for your right to protect yourself, the right of self-protection. This was a big deal. This would have been like Heller versus DC deal.
Hey, click on what's up, Light. Did you see Light's comment?
No,
No.
I'm writing an article.
He said, "Give him back his AR. A riot is breaking out in front of the courthouse. The door slowly opens, and Kyle steps forward."
Did you see the free? Not the free. What of it? That newspaper, the spoof one.
Onion, the Babylon Bee.
Babylon Bee, yes. It had a picture of Kyle out front of the courtroom, and his AR says, "Judge asked Kyle to protect courtroom as jury deliberates." You know what AR stands for? Arm remover.
Ow!
Ooh.
Thought about that this morning. I'm
Dude.
probably not the first one to think about that, but it is.
Ow!
Probably not.
So free AF, all counts, free.
Dude,
Yeah, I posted something on Instagram that said it basically said actually, hold on, let me do this. Let me just do this really quick. I am so happy that Kyle Rittenhouse got off. This is a victory for not only him, but you and me, and a victory for self-defense. It was the right thing to decide, and I am proud that the jury did not let political pressure influence them. This whole trial was political, and that's all it was. So that's what I have. Remember, I love you, and Wolverine's mother.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
I'll tell you, there should be violence on the street, and it should be the prosecution getting hung up. That's what it should be. Is there any level that the prosecutors weren't willing to stoop to.
No.
Unforgivable. And again, I'm all hyperbole. I'm not for violence. That's the other side that burns crap down and injures people. That's not me.
What do you think would have happened if this was flipped? I think this would have been a moment that we saw the other side get as involved as the opposing side had been in the past. Now, it would not have been as bad, like damage-wise, as far, but I mean, it would have been a show in force, I believe. Man, I cannot believe that. Like that.
Okay, so I'm pulling up MSLSD on
real quick, y'all. Change
YouTube TV.
The title of the live to not guilty.
Oh, John, you can do that, right?
I would have to do it for all of them, but I can do that.
Dude, this is pretty amazing. Pretty freaking amazing.
I'm doing that right now. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty.
So they have Chuck Todd on the left screen of MSLSD, and a person of color, and it is cold enough. I think, I don't know what the actual temperature is, but everybody's in hats and jackets and scarves. Let's see, is it mitten weather? I see a lot of people on the steps.
Why don't you bring it up and share it?
For sure. So if I clickety here, and I got to remember how this works. Share.
God damn it, Rich.
Hey, make somebody else your producer.
Were there any of the trial videos that you guys posted that were monetized, or did they all get yellow?
Oh, they're all yellow.
Okay, I figured.
Oh, we got this. We'll bring this one up. Let's see what they have to say. Oh, you already bringing it up? Rich, you got it. You didn't add the sound.
Well, how
Closing
the hell do I
arguments
get
that you
this down?
can't provoke something and then
It's
claim
a small. It's a small box.
I was looking for this.
I got it.
You got it.
Theory that him just being there with a dangerous weapon was provocative. And I think when they broke it down with each of the three victims,
we all watch
That's like the
NBC
hot
because
girl.
we like to celebrate.
agreed with Rittenhouse that he was in danger and that he was justified in taking the violent actions that he did.
And how do you think the social impact of this will be? It's probably hard to read, but a lot of folks will take what they want out of this verdict.
That's right. It was polarizing going in, and it's going to be polarizing going out. You know, we just heard in your report about Second Amendment activists already being on the ground there in Wisconsin. And I think hanging over this is also a Supreme Court case that's currently pending about whether states can be as restrictive as some of them are, as New York is, in prohibiting people from having concealed handguns. And, you know, this verdict,
I like that shirt. That's nice.
Episode is a lesson that may well bear on decisions like that coming down.
Tally, I'll ask you to stand by for a second, and just to remind folks who may be joining us, not guilty on
Second
all counts
Amendment.
for Kyle Rittenhouse in the killing of 2 people and wounding another during a protest last year in Kenosha, Wisconsin. As we continue our coverage of that, joining us now is
what do you guys
Georgetown
think?
School of Law professor and NBC News legal analyst,
If you like,
Paul Butler.
if
Paul,
you
great to
agree
see
with the
you.
decision,
Your
you got to give
early
a super chat.
observations
If
and
you
thoughts
don't,
at this
then
verdict.
don't give a super chat.
The not guilty verdict means that the jurors
Just joking.
believed Mr. Rittenhouse's use of force was
From
justified. They found that he reasonably believed that each of the 3 people he shot posed a deadly threat. And it also means that the
Doesn't
jury
have to be
found
a
that
deadly
Mr.
threat.
Rittenhouse was not the aggressor. He didn't provoke any of this, and in the eyes of the law is now a victim. Lester, I think Mr. Rittenhouse probably won this case by taking the stand. He had a constitutional right not to testify, but when the defense is self-defense, jurors want to hear a story. Mr. Rittenhouse's narrative was that the first person he killed followed him and tried to grab his gun. The second attacked him with a skateboard, and the third person he shot pointed a gun at him. The jury looked at the video, the testimony, and apparently it found reasonable doubt. That's the standard for a not guilty verdict.
The prosecution lost on some points that things it wanted to do, things it wanted to say. Do you think any of those really came into play ultimately?
You know, there were concerns throughout the trial that the judge tipped the scales in front, in favor of Mr. Rittenhouse, including by excluding some evidence that the prosecutors thought was really probative. They had video of Mr. Rittenhouse beating up a teenage girl, another video of him looking at people he thought were stealing from a CVS drugstore and saying, "Man, I wish I had my gun." That might have made a difference to a jury, but the judge thought that it was inadmissible.
It is inadmissible.
Based on the verdict, concerns about the judge and the prosecution will go away. When a defendant is found not guilty, the verdict is final. The prosecution cannot appeal.
What about the child rapist?
Will go away in a legal forum.
What about the abuser? I mean, all of these guys, everybody had criminal charges, a lengthy, violent criminal history. Jump kick man.
Is the jury not simply asked to go inside the mind of the individual, what they thought, what they perceived as a threat?
So the jury has to do two things. One, it has to find that Mr. Rittenhouse himself actually believed that he faced a deadly threat from each of the three people who he assailed. And second, that belief was reasonable, that another reasonable person would have had the same concern. And so in accepting Mr. Rittenhouse's self-defense, the jury was either persuaded by him, or maybe they thought the evidence
sometimes you need to take a beat.
But probably is not good enough if it's a criminal case. The standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt means that the jury has to be around 95%
or they just saw that it was a clean shoot.
All right. Thank you. I want to go to Washington Post columnist Eugene Robinson to give us a little bit of the bigger context. And the context, of course, this was all taking place, Eugene, during a protest over the shooting of a black man by police. When you look at that bigger context, will this always stand apart, or will this be a case that's strictly about self-defense?
Well, it stands a bit apart, Lester, but it's not strictly about self-defense in my view. I mean, there is the issue of how the prosecution presented its case. Had prosecution presented the case all along that it presented in its closing arguments, namely that the people Kyle Rittenhouse says he perceives as a deadly threat. Actually, the reason they were coming at him was they perceived him as a deadly threat because he had this huge military-style weapon and was running up and down the street, and they were just trying to, in effect, protect themselves. But the prosecution didn't really make that case.
Okay, that's some bullshit right there, man.
Wow.
In this case,
protecting themselves
by
chasing him.
Being pro-defendant, you know, look, in our legal system, if you want a judge to lean one way or the other, you want the judge to lean toward all defendants rather than leaning toward all prosecutors. So, you know, so there are unique things about this case. What concerns me is that the result will be seen as a vindication of vigilantism. Of what Kyle Rittenhouse was doing, the larger context of what he was doing, you know, during these demonstrations over the shooting of Jacob Blake, he came across state lines carrying a military.
He did not. This is bullshit. He didn't cross any state lines with it.
Do you have to tell the truth at all?
What end? To protect property that he had nothing to do with his property.
And what about all of the chaos fucking tourists that came across state lines to burn crap in Kenosha?
Who were
of course they're going to spin it
prepared to handle whatever situation arose. If he came in, appointing himself as some sort of enforcer, and
No.
to the extent that this
What?
legitimizes that line of thinking,
No.
that line of
Wow.
action, I think it's very dangerous. And
but
worrisome
bring this
think
thing down.
going forward.
That's not dangerous.
This is a divided country on hair trigger on a lot of issues, and it's a country in which there are more guns than people.
Well,
That's a good thing.
I was just going to say you touched on a
Hit
lot
F,
of points that are going to be the topic
type
of a
F
lot
in
of
the chat
conversation
for
going
more
forward based on
guns
what has
than
happened
people in the
today. We'll be
country.
getting into all that tonight when I see you on
Jesus,
Nightly News.
mother.
That concludes our coverage
It's a
of the
good
verdict
thing.
in the Kyle Rittenhouse
It's a good
trial.
thing.
Again, not guilty on all counts. We'll have much more, as I said, tonight on NBC Nightly News.
F. Lester
I'm a
Holt.
liar. That's what you are.
Dude, I'm thrilled to
All
I can't
right.
even speak. I've put so much time and energy and worry and concern into this. More guns in my house than people too. True that. Tenfold.
Same here. More pistols.
I only have a few guns, as Dark can
John's
attest
lying.
to.
Yep, me
John's
too.
got more guns in his house than there are people in his community.
That's actually probably right.
Yeah, that actually could be true.
Yeah, you're probably right. So this is this is a great day. I mean, it's a really good day.
Yeah, I'm relieved. I'm also still kind of stressed because of the last week and some change. And
Oh, hold on. We got video. Let's go out to the front of the.
Who's burning what down now?
Oh, here we go. Wait till nighttime.
Well, I mean, is that 100 people? How many people?
That's how it all starts.
I don't speak.
She's saying something about she has 3 kids and he had a gun or something, but I can't.
Okay. Well, I got 2 kids and he had a gun.
Killed by Rittenhouse. MSLSD is showing the people killed by Rittenhouse. Are they saying, hey, child rapists?
No, so right now the MSM is on a journey to fuel the destabilization plan that they have to. Ignite something.
Why are we watching in Spanish? Oh, is that...
I have no idea. I'm gonna...
I can't understand what she's saying. It probably just happened to be a Spanish channel that was out there interviewing on a non-Spanish.
No, that's the Washington Post.
That's Are you goofing? You're totally goofing, John.
No, I'm dead serious.
They just happened to catch an interview because think about how many different.
They pulled up the Univision feed.
She was definitely saying something.
Petey Ralph, I need to talk to you.
Petey Ralph, brother.
Petey Ralph doesn't talk to me. So.
He did hit me back.
And also, what do you make here of the fact that we saw when we were in the courtroom that the judge had said nobody can show clear emotion or else they could be removed. We saw Kyle Rittenhouse just a few moments after.
Of course, Kyle Rittenhouse going to show emotion.
He did cry and collapse.
Hey, hang on. I gotta take
hug
this.
his attorney there. He was helped back into his chair. What can you tell us about the uniqueness here of Wisconsin's self-defense laws?
It is a little unique, but more and more states are adopting more of this, I'll call it liberal view of self-defense, which isn't very strict. So if the person believes that they're in danger, just a subjective nature, if they believe it, then they can be acquitted, which is what happened here. What you used to see maybe 5 or 10 years ago is kind of an objective standard. Would a reasonable person have been afraid? And that's still the law in some states. But states are moving more to, again, just the subjective nature. Do you think you
Hold
were
on.
afraid?
Hey,
In this
y'all.
case,
Hey,
did
I got
Rittenhouse really think he was afraid,
individual.
even if he shouldn't have been? So it depends where the law is going to go in these different states.
Hey,
going
John,
giving more
real quick, I have somebody that translated what she said.
End up shooting somebody.
All right,
Pause this real quick.
Jeffrey, stick
Hold
around
on,
for
let
us.
me
We do want
unmute
to try
that.
and get back to Ellison Barber there on the ground outside the Kenosha
And you're
courthouse. Ellison,
live,
wondering what the
FYI.
reaction was.
So I didn't tell anyone who you are or anything, but it's up to you if you want to say who you are.
No, I'll remain anonymous. But yeah, she said, because of this little fucker, we're going to burn down this entire city like we did the first time. She said, watch what's going to happen tonight.
Is that what she actually said, or is that?
Yeah, no, this is
And then you guys cut it. So I was hoping you would have let it play because she was talking a lot of shit, but yeah.
So that Latino woman is saying she's going to burn the city down.
So he's saying that Latino woman said that she's not saying she was going to burn the city down. She's basically saying, like, if you let him go free, like, watch what happens tonight. We're going to come back and the whole city's going to burn down. Yeah, and this is somebody that's fluent in Spanish and Portuguese and Blackanese.
I mean, you might as well just let them know who this is.
Yeah, right.
Who is it?
It's P90 Nerf.
It's Ralph the Builder now.
What's up, Ralph?
Ralph the Builder. He can't hear you guys. I'm sorry. All right, give me a second. I'm gonna chat with P90 Nerf and hang tight, y'all.
Yeah. So I'm gonna unmute the volume and let's just listen on to see what the coverage is, because this is definitely interesting times we live in.
Has been not just in the country, but in this community as well, and we've seen it on the courthouse steps. Very different sides of this. Lindsay?
Ellison, we know that the National Guard right now is poised and ready, but that they haven't been officially mobilized here.
This is going to be interesting.
Do you get the sense, and you've been out there every single day for the past week, just in the initial instances here, do you
know what? I think he should go get a long gun since he's 18 now and just go out there again.
No, I don't. And obviously that can change. And
you should go to Disneyland.
I've covered a
Disney
lot
World.
of different
go right back to the
situations, things that have turned to protests, and it can happen in a minute. But in terms of where things are
Not
right
guilty.
now,
All
everybody
charges.
locally, from
Free
police to
AF.
sheriff, everyone feels pretty calm, I think, in terms of where things were heading into this verdict. The crowd out here, they were having cookies rather, and coffee with police yesterday. So they said that they felt like there were no specific concerns that they were worried about. And they did feel like while people are paying close attention to this, there is a nervousness in this community about a potential reaction, that the way people are behaving so far has been calm, peaceful, and they don't have any specific.
Mostly peaceful, right?
Lindsay?
Ellison, thank you. Want to go now to NBC legal analyst Kristen Gibbons-Fedden. And Kristen, we had been talking with former Assistant U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Kramer about his reaction. Just want to get your initial reaction to the fact that Kyle Rittenhouse has been acquitted on all counts.
Yeah, as a former prosecutor, it is difficult to kind of see Kyle Rittenhouse being acquitted
Unless
on
you're
these
blind.
very charges. As a Black female, I have other
Lord
as well. But I think one of the things that it boils down to is this was a difficult case for the prosecution.
No, it wasn't.
And one of
They
the
shouldn't have
reasons
prosecuted
that made
it.
it difficult was that they don't have that clear video, showing how horrendous these acts were. They had 2 victims who are deceased, who couldn't speak for themselves, and they had one other
We don't
victim
need any of that.
who thankfully did survive the blow to his arm, but that gave testimony that really aided the defense in their self-defense argument. I think one of the things that was very difficult here for the prosecution was the fact that, the video kind of showed chaos, right? And so in order for the prosecution to have come out with guilty on all charges, they not only had to disprove Kyle Rittenhouse's defense of self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt, but they also had to prove all of those indicia of homicide for each and every single count for all 3 of those victims beyond a reasonable doubt. And that is a hefty, hefty burden. the defense in this case, the self-defense argument, they really only had to convince one juror. And, you know, I'm sure that reporters will speak to the jurors to find out where they were ultimately, but that is obviously, you know, less of a burden. But I think one of the takeaways here, just as a human in this society.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here's some bullshit here.
Kyle Rittenhouse go into.
This is some propaganda.
Kenosha. And yes, he had ties with his dad, but regardless, a 17-year-old
Oh,
going
shut
into
up, you
another
stupid.
city, not necessarily being invited, knowing of the harms, knowing of the
Nobody was
risks that were
invited.
associated with it, and kind of going and provoking other people.
Shut up, you stupid. See you next Tuesday.
So if the girl,
going after and
it's
shooting
okay to
another
rape her.
individual, those individuals who, per the prosecution, were trying to, you know, defend or stop an active shooter. Makes it
No,
really
there was no
difficult to
active
digest.
shooter.
Basically, it says if you go and you commit a crime and you're running away from it, you can go ahead and shoot anybody who's trying to stop you. And so that's what this
these
kind of
people
showed us. And
weren't
so it's difficult
deputized.
to digest as a human being, as a former prosecutor and as a Black female.
Kristen, we are
She's
right
out
now
of her
seeing
mind.
Pictures from outside the courthouse.
There's nothing legally that supports what she just said.
What you make here of the factors, the environment, the elements here that led to where we are. We have Wisconsin, whose self-defense laws are considered sort of lenient in this area. We have the fact that the prosecution and the judge did get into some back and forth every now and then. We have some comments that the judge made that were under criticism. What do you make here of some of the things that we've seen, not just today in leading to the verdict, but really the nearly 3 weeks of trial that we've all been watching?
Yeah, you know, the prosecution, I think, put on a good case. They didn't have the best facts. They had a grainy video. They didn't have the best facts, but I think they
video quality had nothing to do with it.
From what they had.
This is
The
insane.
back and forth with the judge, you know, as a prosecutor, you got to know your judge. You got to know if your judge is going to be
No, you got to have
leaning
facts on
defense
your side.
on their motion. So I was somewhat surprised to kind of see some of the footage of the prosecutors being surprised at some of the rulings from the judge, or even some of the
surprised. I was surprised at seeing some of the crap the prosecutors pulled.
And you got to make sure that
No, you got to know your law.
Evidence that you kind of make sure that you anticipate the judge precluding certain things that you may otherwise get on a judge who kind of is more thorough with their review and more critical and analytical with some of the legal arguments. But I
so if the judge adheres to the law, then he's biased.
Why did this happen, right? And it kind of goes back to a shooting of an unarmed Black man, which, as we've seen, is something that our nation has
Other
really
than
been
keep
divided.
burning the city down, no, it had
whether or
nothing to do
not
with it.
We need to put in the appropriate reforms, whether or not there's pushback.
Yeah,
You know, and I
don't let
think
people
that's
burn
what this
cities
really
down.
boils down to is what really is justice in America, right? Justice does not rise or fall on these individual cases. We were really excited to get guilty on all charges
Who wrote her
for
script?
the murder of George Floyd, but where is the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act right now? Where was it?
What does that have to do with
anniversary
anything?
when our congressional members were telling the family, "Oh, we're almost there."
You have
right?
to look
And
at
so
this. She's
what
looking at
this
it
really
wrong.
boils
She's
down
looking
to,
at
what
it
you're seeing
collectively
here
from
is
30,000 feet.
people
You have to
fighting
look
for
at this
justice,
in each
fighting to be
situation in
heard,
isolation.
asking for
Okay?
change in the
Each
only way
one
that we know
is
how,
a brick
and that's
of
through
justice
effective
in the wall.
protest. Now, what Kyle
Unbelievable.
Rittenhouse trial has shown us is even if you engage in protesting, a person can come in and be an active shooter and can get away with murdering,
Is she gonna cry?
you know, otherwise innocent
Wow.
individuals. And
Bitch.
that's going to be an appropriate self-defense argument.
You know what,
So
boy,
it's really
did you
shameful
wrong?
what we're seeing with this verdict.
They don't know what a clean
and
sheet
it
is.
makes us, I think, all of us as a society, I hope it makes us pause to see how could this have been prevented. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
2 lives were lost.
Don't let
And one man
frickin'
will never be able
felons
to
run
use
the
his arm again.
streets and attack
So
people.
we really need to have a reckoning to
Arm
figure
remover
out how
15.
could this have all been avoided.
Kristen, stick around for us. I want to play the moment that verdict was read and then check back in with Ellison Barber on the scene. Let's go ahead and listen to that moment that we learned that the jury had acquitted Kyle Rittenhouse on all counts.
As to the first count of the information, Joseph Rosenbaum. we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the second count of the information, Richard McGinnis, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the third count of the information, unknown male, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we, the jury, find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
Dude, that's such a beautiful thing to hear.
Right, that moment is playing out on the lower right-hand corner of your screen. As we are watching on the left side, just a scrum
Guys,
of
I'm
people
sorry,
there
I
outside the
gotta
courthouse.
run. I
Ellison,
hate to
you
run
can
too.
hear me wondering what you're
Thank you.
seeing
Keep it
and
running,
hearing
right?
there outside.
I will.
Hey, Lindsay. Yeah, so this man right here in the red jacket, this is Justin Blake, the uncle of Jacob Blake, the man who was shot 7 times by Kenosha police and paralyzed from the waist down. His shooting is what triggered the protests, the unrest that took place in August that then Kyle Rittenhouse traveled to from Antioch, Illinois, where everything that took place that night happened in August. Not far from here, actually, just down this road is where just a couple blocks there is where all of this really took place. You can hear and you can kind of see some of the crowds a little bit spreading out now. But if you look back over behind us, you can see some of the different signs that we've seen here. This group here is a group that supported Kyle Rittenhouse. They believe justice was served today. You see the one-man sign saying "Free Kyle." The U.S. is still worth defending, not guilty. When that verdict came down, some people drove through this area honking their horns saying "Free Kyle." The Second Amendment is still law, supporting the Second Amendment. Over here you have people who were hoping for a very different outcome today. And again, that is the uncle of Jacob Blake, who is speaking with the media right now. He has been out here throughout the trial, peacefully protesting, waiting to hear this verdict. There are signs that these groups have different signs here. Actually, if I could see this sign here, you can see this man's sign. Rittenhouse is guilty. So are the cops who shot Jacob Blake. This trial is a farce. We've seen a lot of people coming who feel that way, that they did not trust.
So did they say Jacob Blake was unarmed?
That he made throughout this trial
Yes.
that were televised live further that
So
down. And now,
what's a knife?
obviously, this verdict, not one that they consider to be just, but here this side says that it absolutely is. Again, Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty on all 5 counts, all 5 charges. Lindsay?
Ellison, wondering what you can tell us about the size of the crowd since we checked in with you moments before the verdict was read and now.
Some people actually seem to have started to kind of make their way home. This is a small group of protesters. It's never really been over 30 that have been out here really since the jury has been deliberating. And a lot of them are family members of the people who lost their lives. We've seen the girlfriend of Anthony Huber. She was here again today. We'd seen her on the steps a couple of days ago. Her boyfriend, he's the one who had the skateboard, the second person Kyle Rittenhouse shot and killed that night. She was in court today. She has left and already appeared to be heading home with Anthony Huber's aunt, great aunt relative who had testified during this trial. I mean, people are talking. You can hear the chatter of different kind of opposing mics all around me, but things are calm. Really, the most consistent noise you hear is just people driving by honking and then appearing
guys,
to go about their day. As
I put out in my article that I'm writing. I'm using this line, and if you guys read it, you guys are in on the joke.
Say that they were nervous about a potential
I said that
violent reaction to a verdict, regardless of what the
that Grosskreutz was shot in the arm and he was disarmed at that point.
From everything we've seen here, this is a community divided, just like the rest of the country is over this case, but calm. And at this moment, it feels like this is the way people are choosing to process what happened at this court today. They are speaking to each other.
I mean, he should have been
trying to
off.
speak to us,
You know, you
and staying
can't prosecute someone for political reasons.
Thank you so much. We'll let you continue to gather there at the scene. Want to bring in NBC News legal analyst Tally Farhadian Weinstein here. And Tally, starting by asking all of our legal experts here what their initial reactions are to the verdict.
I'm not surprised by this verdict. The defendant, Kyle Rittenhouse, put on a really robust claim of self-defense. And in Wisconsin and almost everywhere around the country, and I think this is really important, it's not his burden to prove that he was acting in self-defense. Once he made that claim, the prosecution had to disprove it. And that turned out to be too heavy a burden for them to bear. The jury accepted
For their
his
skills
idea,
or
really a
lack
bold
thereof.
idea,
Hold
that
on, I'll be right
his
back.
own gun is what put him in danger. He walked into this volatile situation and he said that he was worried they would take his weapon from him. That is really kind of an amazing thing to absorb.
And also, what do you make here of the fact that this has been a divisive issue, a divisive trial? Ellison was just showing us people on one side, one man we see with a sign saying "Free Kyle," another had a sign calling for Kyle's conviction here, which we now know he has been acquitted on all charges. But what do you see of the implications here of the result of this case?
I think that it has been polarizing throughout, and to me, its main implications are going to be really asking about how we want the Second Amendment to exist. You know,
This has nothing to do with the Second Amendment.
To live in a world where walking around with a gun and combined with self-defense regimes like the one in Wisconsin can produce results like this, where this kind of killing is justified. You know, if you go back and you look at the 3 people that he shot, only one of them, the one who survived, had actually pointed a gun at Rittenhouse. In the other 2, he said it was his own gun that he was afraid of. He was afraid that it would turn on him. And I think we're going to be talking
wait,
about
the other
that
2
for
said
a
that?
long time.
Because that'd be tough. They're dead.
What do you make here of some of the Twitter comments, which I don't know, like you, I've kind of been glued to what people's reactions are because I'm not there on the ground, but you know, people saying they're not surprised and saying this is America right now. I mean, there are a bunch of hashtags that are trending right now. I'm going to go through some of them here as I pull them up. Kyle Rittenhouse is trending #1, but we have, let's see what else. I mean, for example, white supremacy is trending. That Kyle is innocent was trending. There was another that said not surprised. This obviously isn't going to help take the temperature of the country and racial injustice down at all. But what do you make of some of those reactions on social media?
Yeah, it's a lot to absorb. I mean, those reactions tell me to remember the larger context of this case, that it all happened on a night of protests over the shooting of a Black man, and that
was unarmed,
its way into the case,
but only with a knife.
even though it wasn't, you know, built into the facts of the 3
he only had a knife
that he was on trial for. And I think people were really divided over who they saw in Kyle Rittenhouse. He obviously made a really successful play.
Zach Carr's got a great comment here.
Defense.
Something I meant to talk
we
about.
Saw a surge of these comments, really sympathetic. They saw a kid who was sincerely.
I don't need to hear this crap anymore. I'd rather you hear my crap. So many people, starting with the former vice president, Joe Biden, who now thinks his name is Brandon, slandered Kyle Rittenhouse. They really, all of these organizations spread lies, mistruths, and slander. It's horrific. It really is horrific, the state of news in this country. I just can't believe the crap that they came up with. It's really unbelievable to me that these news organizations, and realistically they're propaganda organizations, came up with this kind of stuff and pushed it onto the community for so long. This had nothing to do with race. Kyle Rittenhouse went out because he's a clever and devious attempted mass murder and spree shooter, that he tried to throw everybody off the tracks by carrying a medical kit and cleaning up graffiti that morning to throw everybody off the trail of his planned melee that evening. This is nuts. This is they're complaining about the quality of the video, that it was grainy, that if it was more high res. I don't care if you had 8K video from, you know, point of view video. It's nuts in my mind to think that these people sought out and attacked Kyle Rittenhouse. All of the people that attacked Kyle Rittenhouse had lengthy arrest records for violent crimes against other people. We're not just talking property crimes. Every one of them had arrests and convictions. And sometimes you don't get a conviction. You might get arrested for something, cooling off period, and then the girl, like Jump Kick Man, that he beat, you know, maybe 3 or 4 of the times she said, all right, I'm not going to press charges, and the 4th time she pressed charges. This is complete bullcrap. All of these guys that were attacking Kyle Rittenhouse were freaking convicted of violent crimes against other people. This is nuts. This is absolutely 100% nuts. And yeah, I hope that Lynn Wood, just like I believe it was Lynn Wood that took a civil suit for the Covington kid that had that smelly Indian guy beating a drum in his face, because everybody else slandered him. I mean, unrightly so. That kid was just there smiling. And they're like, look at him. Look at him wearing the MAGA hat, intimidating that poor toothless Indian. And I don't think he was an Indian or a veteran. I think he was like stateside, and he claimed to be a Vietnam vet. The unbelievable crap that the news media peddles to us on a regular basis, and it's the shirt here is from Chris Ann Hall, the sweatshirt I'm wearing. And basically, you can't trust the media, is what it says. And the original quote was from, I believe, Thomas Jefferson. The unbelievable amount of lies. And they're saying that he was a threat to the community. He was a threat shooting wildly at the crowd. Absolutely unbelievable. And this is what I've been saying. It's like, do rapists get a break because the girl was hot, because she looked good? So they say Kyle Rittenhouse, you know, he carried a weapon of war, an AR-15, crossed state lines with it. Of course they're going to try and pull that away from him. It's like, yeah, nah, that's not how it works. Because the girl was hot or you were attracted to her and raped her isn't the excuse. If Kyle Rittenhouse has a gun and was chased down, as they're playing the video right now, chased by somebody as gunshots are going off from other people. And again, the duplicitousness of the prosecution. So is it Zeminski, whatever the guy's name is that shot the gun? They delayed his trial so he couldn't be a witness in this. They're really playing a whole lot of freaking prosecutorial chess. I don't want to say 2D, 3D, 4D chess, but they played fast and loose with the facts. Also, the prosecution knew who Jump Kick Man was. So not only did the prosecution do multiple things that were wrong in court that a first-year law student would know, that's never been in a courtroom. They also withheld evidence on multiple occasions, you know, whether it was a high-resolution evidence, that they knew who Jump Kick Man was. They made sure that Zeminski couldn't testify because they made sure his case was in the future. I believe they dropped firearms charges against Gage Grossbaum. This is unbelievable how the prosecution worked overtime to architect this. Johnny, you talking?
fear of his life. And if that's a yes, then did the prosecution disprove that reasonability beyond a reasonable doubt, right? Because all the defense needs to do in Wisconsin is to raise it. The prosecution must disprove it beyond a reasonable doubt. They had to look at reasonability. Was Kyle Rittenhouse's actions reasonable? They also had to look at whether or not there was sufficient provocation. And all of those elements are very legally complex theories for lawyers, let alone lay jurors. And so I think in this legally complex case, where it wasn't just based on the facts or just credibility, did he do it, did he not do it, where there were very complex legal concepts such as self-defense and homicide and the requisite intent, I am not surprised that the jury took this long. Hopefully it is indicative of them carefully considering the evidence, though.
Our thanks to Kristen Gibbons-Fedden and also Tali Farhadian Weinstein. Everybody, top of the hour, we want to let you all know that we are following breaking news here, and Kyle Rittenhouse has been found not guilty on all counts that he was tried for in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Want to go back out to Ellison Barber, our correspondent who's outside the courthouse. And Ellison, you've been trying to talk to people about how they've been feeling. Obviously, the crowd has been growing there outside the courthouse. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I mean, there's not, when you speak to people here in terms of whether or not they think justice was served, there is no middle ground. Either the answer is yes, they believe justice was served here today, or no, they absolutely do not believe that it was served. As a reminder, Kyle Rittenhouse faced 5 charges, the most serious being intentional homicide, and that would have carried a mandatory life sentence. He was found not guilty on all counts. If you remember throughout the trial at the end, one of the things that became pivotal to the prosecution's case was a drone video that was taken that night that showed the moments leading up to the shooting of the first individual, Joseph Rosenbaum, who was shot and killed. They focused heavily on that and tried to convince the jury that in that moment that there was a point where Kyle Rittenhouse sat down a fire extinguisher and turned towards Joseph Rosenbaum with his rifle, and that was provocation, and that in that moment Joseph Rosenbaum then chased Kyle, and that Kyle, because he first pointed the gun there in that video, according to the prosecution, that he gave up his right to self-defense.
Notice how she slipped in according to the prosecution, pointed the gun. Nobody's seen that. And I'm open to proof. Show me it happened.
Big point of contention, of debate, with the defense saying they had a compressed, lower quality version of that drone footage heading into the trial. They'd asked the judge to declare a mistrial without prejudice solely over what they said was the discrepancy in that video. The prosecution
discrepancy. You mean the video being a third of the quality of what the prosecution got?
This week to declare a mistrial without prejudice, meaning the state would have been able to bring it back up. The judge did not make a decision on that at the time. He said, let's see what the jury comes back on. And if they come back on any count with a guilty verdict, then that would be something that we would have to address.
American Gun Chick's got a good point here.
Now it appears like that's not.
She says, now it's time to get all the social media platforms to remove all the strikes given for supporting a mass shooter. Also, GoFundMe, I believe it was GoFundMe or one of them. They were trying to raise money for Kyle, and they said he was a mass shooter. This is not a mass shooting. He was defending himself from attackers. And what does it go to say? Don't bring fists to a gunfight, jackwagon. That's the short of it. This is unbelievable. I just am so fed up with the media and what they say. It's absolutely wrong. It's just absolutely having nothing to do with the truth. And even people I know, I mean, people that I went to college with, I see what they're posting on Facebook. Like, he was shooting up a crowd of people. One of my friends who now lives in Wisconsin, who's, liberal nutnig, he's drinking the MSNBC Kool-Aid. It's unbelievable what people are believing.
Up for you, Kyle Rittenhouse acquitted on all counts there in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and we appreciate all of you for sticking around with us. I'm Lindsay Reiser. We do want to show you how this verdict went down inside that Kenosha, Wisconsin courthouse. We're going to play for you the NBC News special report as it happened, as we await to hear the verdict.
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
Good day. We're coming on the air with breaking news. A verdict has been reached in the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, the 18-year-old who is facing charges for fatally shooting two and wounding another during demonstrations in Kenosha, Wisconsin in August of 2020. The trial obviously has captured national attention. Rittenhouse facing charges that could send him to prison for life. Let's go into the courtroom now live.
Would you give your juror number, please?
54.
54. And has the jury reached a verdict as to each count of the information?
Yes, we have, Your Honor.
One verdict and one verdict only.
Yes.
Would you hand all the paperwork to the bailiff, please?
This is the ones that we didn't know.
Everything.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
When they said one verdict only, that's when I knew he was innocent.
May I see that too, please, Mrs. Chairman? Thank you. The defendant will rise, face the jury, and hearken to its verdicts.
State of Wisconsin versus Kyle Rittenhouse. As to the first count of the information, Joseph Rosenbaum. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the second count of the information, Richard McGinnis. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the third count of the information, unknown male. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fourth count of the information, Anthony Huber. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty.
Members of the jury, are these your unanimous verdicts? Is there anyone who does not agree with the verdicts as read? Would you wish the jury polled? No. Okay. Okay, folks, your job is done. And
It looks like he's cried like LeBron James does when he gets a cramp.
3 weeks ago. And I told you it could last 2 weeks and 2 days. This is 2 weeks. This is 3 weeks. You were a wonderful jury to work with. You were punctual. You were attentive. And the forgotten six over here who had a very difficult job of keeping from discussing the case during the time that they were sequestered as well. Better jury to work with. And it has truly been my pleasure. I think, without commenting on your verdict, the verdicts themselves, just in terms of your the attentiveness and the cooperation that you gave to us, justifies the confidence that the founders of our country placed in you. So I dismiss you at this time. You're never under any obligation to discuss any aspect of this case with anyone. You're welcome to do so as little or as much as you want. The media have requested, a number of media sources have requested the ability to talk to you, and they have been allowed to present presentations to you that you'll get in writing, and it's entirely up to you whether you want to contact them. They are not to contact you. If anyone does contact you and just tell them you're not interested in discussing it, if that's the case. And if anyone persists in doing so, report that to us and it will be addressed, I assure you. At the beginning of the trial, there was some concern about information and your safety. And I assure you that we will take every measure to ensure that that is, your concerns are addressed and respected. I'm going to talk to you for just a minute, not about anything to do with the case, but just about that sole issue. And You, as I say, you're welcome to discuss the case as little or as much as you want. Any questions, anybody? Thank you so much. And you're after 4 years, you're eligible for service again. It would be my pleasure to work with you. Thank you.
Judge Schroeder dismissing the jury. This case is over. Kyle Rittenhouse found not guilty on all 5 counts he faced in the shooting deaths of 2 men, the wounding of another during protests, social justice protests last year.
Social justice?
Wisconsin. We want to go right to NBC's Gabe Gutierrez. He's there. He's been covering this case from the start. Tell us what the reaction you're seeing right now is, Gabe.
No justice, no peace.
As we mentioned, Kyle Rittenhouse found not guilty on all counts. A small crowd of demonstrators.
It's too cold for us to protest. Can we reschedule for a warmer day?
Few moments, we have seen supporters of Kyle Rittenhouse say, "Free Rittenhouse," and also the Second Amendment is alive. And Lester, that is a theme that has run throughout this case. The jury apparently siding with the defense, which argued throughout this trial that Kyle Rittenhouse came down here to Kenosha to protect the city from rioters and that he only acted in self-defense once he was attacked. Of course, the prosecution had made the argument that you shouldn't be able to claim self-defense if this is a danger you helped create, essentially arguing that Kyle Rittenhouse was the aggressor. But this jury of 12 sided with the defense. Again, Lester, that Kyle Rittenhouse acted in self-defense. He is now found not guilty. You saw him inside that courtroom.
Too many choices. I completely agree with you. I hope Linwood teams up with him and sues the living frick out of all of these media organizations that have lied, and lied. Unbelievable. Unbelievable what these a-hole organizations did. All you got to do is show the video and you can see he acted in self-defense. You don't need 8K point of view video from the victim. All you have to do is see what happened, that he was getting chased down. There's no situation when you're getting chased down by somebody that you don't have the right to defend yourself. That's crazy. Now, of course, there's different states that don't have castle doctrine. You have to show a right to retreat or whatever. But Florida and obviously Wisconsin, that isn't so.
Familiar with this case, this all happened during the unrest that followed the police shooting of a black man, Jacob Blake. Rittenhouse coming to Kenosha.
Was he unarmed? The unarmed black man, Jacob Blake?
The state line.
You mean the man that was terrorizing a woman who had an order of protection against him, was not listening to cops' lawful orders, and went for a knife?
Gun possession by a minor.
The
defense
that
arguing
Jacob
that
Blake?
Wisconsin law did not apply to long-barreled rifles, and so that count was dropped. Some legal analysts
It's not a
say
long barrel
that
rifle, it's a standard barrel rifle. It's a lawful barrel rifle.
Conviction, but they did not have that.
I mean, long, I'd consider 29 inches long.
They were deliberating on 5 felony counts, the most serious of which was first-degree intentional homicide. And as you mentioned, Lester, if convicted, he faced the possibility of life in prison. But again, the jury siding with the defense, finding Kyle Rittenhouse not guilty on all counts.
And we note, of course, those on the courthouse steps behind you. Can you characterize the crowd, how the crowd may have reacted at the verdict?
Yes, Lester, behind me, there's been a small contingency here outside the courthouse each day. And many of them were actually supporters or family members of Jacob Blake, a man who was shot and paralyzed in that police shooting. They were here each day. Several supporters of Kyle Rittenhouse as well, and supporters of gun rights had actually been outside this courthouse. There have been a few minor skirmishes, a few arrests outside of the courthouse, but Lester, the temperature here in Kenosha in terms of unrest is much different than it was last summer when all these events unfolded. Most of these demonstrations have been peaceful, but still, Lester, there had been a tension over the city. Just this week, several schools had switched to virtual learning in anticipation of a possible verdict. The governor had authorized several hundred National Guard members to be on standby. They were never deployed, but there was a lot of there was some tension here and a lot of preparation by local authorities not to have a repeat of what had happened last summer during the initial unrest following the shooting.
Blah,
the
blah,
reaction here, Lester.
Blah.
Just some.
Why when I hear Lester, do I always want to say molester? I don't know. So just in case you're wondering, it's going to be cold and overcast in Wisconsin with only a slight chance of riot due to temperatures. So let's see. Today, high of 38 degrees, low of 34. Tomorrow, high of 48. So there might be a chance of mid to late day riots, but not going into the late evening hours because the temperature is going to go down to 35. And definitely not Sunday. There might be daylight hour chances of riots, but not after sunset because it's going down to 19 degrees overnight. And the rest of the week will be similarly cold. So very little chance of riots on Sunday. Friday and Saturday, before it gets too cold for the rioters, you might have some activity, but generally, no, you will not likely see riotous activity in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And that's your riot weather report. Back to you in the studio.
Make a case that argued against what Rittenhouse was saying.
No, I think when we sit with this verdict, what we are going to look at is the really dangerous combination of liberal self-defense laws like the ones in Wisconsin around the country
Liberal?
And the accessibility of guns, because in the end, his argument, which prevailed, was that his own gun, Kyle Rittenhouse's own gun, is what put him in danger and what justified him using deadly force. If he had not had that gun in his hand, then he would not have been in a position.
If the hot girl wore a skirt, it's okay to rape her.
And I think we're going to be sitting with that toxic combination of self-defense and the proliferation of guns for a really long time.
Toxic combination.
Had made the argument in their closing arguments that you can't provoke something and then claim it was self-defense. Maybe you can.
That's nutbag. That's crazy.
It says that, at least in this case, the jury read provocation really narrowly. So they did not accept the theory that him just being there with a dangerous weapon was provocative. And I think when they broke it down with each of the three victims, they choose and they agreed with Rittenhouse.
If you're ready to defend yourself, that's provocative, and you deserve to be attacked if you have the ability to defend yourself.
The social impact of this will be it's probably hard to read, but a lot of folks will take what they want out of this verdict.
That's right. It was polarizing going in, and it's going to be polarizing going out. We just heard in your report about Second Amendment activists already being on the ground there in Wisconsin.
Oh, yeah. And they might burn stuff. They're probably cleaning up.
So a Supreme Court case that's currently pending about whether states can be as restrictive as some of them are, as New York is, in prohibiting people from having concealed handguns.
That was rough.
And this verdict and this whole episode is a lesson that may well bear on decisions like that coming down.
Telly, I'll ask you to stand by for a second and just to remind folks who may be joining us, not guilty on all counts for Kyle Rittenhouse.
She looked hot.
The killing of two people.
She wore a skirt, high heels.
Protest last year in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
She definitely looked hot.
As we continue.
Can I get off? Because it was provocative.
Georgetown School of Law professor and NBC News legal analyst Paul Butler. Paul, great to see you. Your early observations and thoughts at this verdict.
The not guilty verdict means that the jurors believed Mr. Rittenhouse's use of force was justified.
Let's see the factometer going.
Believe that each of the three people he shot posed a deadly threat. And it also means that the jurors found that Mr. Rittenhouse was not the aggressor. He didn't provoke any of this, and in the eyes of the law is now a victim. I think Mr. Rittenhouse probably won this case by taking the stand. He had a
They played this already. This is the same freaking script he read earlier.
Self-defense. Jurors want to hear a story. Mr. Rittenhouse's narrative was that the first person he killed followed him and tried to grab his gun. The second attacked him with a skateboard, and the third person he shot pointed a gun at him. The jury looked at the video, the testimony, And apparently it found reasonable doubt. That's the standard for a not guilty.
The prosecution lost on some points that things it wanted to do, things it wanted to say. Do you think any of those really came into play ultimately?
You know, there were concerns throughout the trial that the judge tipped the scales in favor of Mr. Rittenhouse, including by excluding some evidence that the prosecutors thought was really probative. They had video of Mr. Rittenhouse beating up a teenage girl, another video of him looking at people he thought were stealing from a CVS drugstore and saying, man, I wish I had my gun. That might have made a difference to a jury, but the judge thought that it was inadmissible. Based on the verdict, concerns about the judge and the prosecution will go away. When a defendant is found not guilty, the verdict is final. The prosecution cannot appeal. So those concerns will go away in a legal forum. I think that there are some people who will not have confidence in this.
Wah, wah, wah. Oh my gosh. All right, can we get a stream from like Fox News or somebody that has a damn brain to talk about this? Because I mean, I'm kind of sick of hearing this. Crumpy, are you with us? Crump, nod if you hear me. I think Crump is busy doing something else. So tell me what you guys think. Let's see. And let's see. I'm talking to the Black Swan Media family out there. Fox News has a brain. Well, boy, if I could pull in ONN. Give me a second. I am gonna just turn this on to aggravate you all, and I'll be right back with some additional technology.
Eugene Robinson to give us a little bit of the bigger context. And the context, of course, this was all taking place, Eugene, during a protest over the shooting of a black man by police. When you look at that bigger context, will this always stand apart, or will this be a case that's strictly about self-defense?
Well, it stands a bit apart, Lester, but it's not strictly about self-defense in my view. I mean, there is the issue of how the prosecution presented its case. Had prosecution presented the case all along that it presented in its closing arguments, namely that the people Kyle Rittenhouse says he perceives as a deadly threat. Actually, the reason they were coming at him was they perceived him as a deadly threat because he had this huge military-style weapon and was running up and down the street, and they were just trying to, in effect, protect themselves. But the prosecution didn't really make that case. They argued it in closing arguments, and then, of course, the judge in this case has a long history of being pro-defendant. You know, look, in our legal system, if you want a judge to lean one way or the other, you want the judge to lean toward all defendants rather than leaning toward all prosecutors. So, you know, so there are unique things about this case. But what concerns me, though, is that the result will be seen as a vindication of vigilantism. Of what Kyle Rittenhouse was doing, the larger context of what he was doing, you know, during these demonstrations over the shooting of Jacob Blake. He came across state lines carrying a military-style assault weapon.
They're just replaying an earlier cut.
With what end? What aim? What end? To protect.
What aim? It just proves it's the best damn thing to defend yourself.
There were police on the scene, you know, duly authorized and trained law enforcement officers who were prepared to handle whatever situation arose. Yet he came.
No, there were no officers prepared to handle anything.
As some sort of enforcer, and to the extent that this legitimizes that line of thinking, that line of action, I think it's very dangerous, and it's very worrisome going forward. You know, this is a divided country on hair trigger on a lot of issues, and it's a country in which there are more guns than people.
Damn right.
I was just going to say, you touched on a lot of points that are going to be the topic of a lot of conversation going forward based on what has happened today. And we'll be getting into all that tonight when I see you on Nightly News. That concludes our coverage of the verdict in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Again, not guilty on all counts. We'll have much more, as I said, tonight on NBC Nightly News. For now, I'm Lester Holt, NBC
not damn
News,
guilty.
New York. Good day.
All right, we are continuing to follow this breaking news on NBC News now. Kyle Rittenhouse acquitted on all charges, found not guilty. The jury just walked in and read all of those, all of the charges, and the fact that they do not find him guilty of any of the counts that he was being tried for. We want to go on the ground to Kenosha, Wisconsin here and talk to NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber. Ellison, obviously, Twitter is ablaze with people's reactions, but curious what the reaction was outside the courthouse. All right, it doesn't sound like we have Ellison yet. We're going to work on that. I want to bring in former Assistant U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Kramer here. And Jeffrey, first, just your blanket reaction here to the fact that he was acquitted on all counts.
Slightly surprised. I've done both sides of the aisle, prosecution and defense lawyer. There were some lesser includeds in there. You thought there might be a compromise, but clearly the jury believed the self-defense claim after he testified. There was some back and forth for a few days, but it was a reasonable length of time for a jury to come back, but surprised it was across the board not guilty.
I want to ask you about counts 4 and 5, in which the prosecution had asked and the judge allowed for the jury to consider lesser charges. But when we heard the jury reading all of the counts and their verdicts, they didn't go into any of the lesser charges. Can you explain that?
Because they didn't need to.
They found not guilty on the higher counts. And if they found that, then clearly they didn't have enough to warrant a conviction of some of the lesser counts that you indicated. So they didn't bother going into that because the higher counts subsumed those lesser counts.
Okay. Want to see if we can get Ellison Barber there again on the ground. Ellison, again, we don't have Ellison yet. So Jeff, we'll stick with you for a little bit here. But when we talk about the implications here of this case, obviously everybody, all eyes of America were on the racial unrest protests that were happening. What do you see implication-wise the result of this trial?
It was a couple of things. You have to divorce yourself from the verdict itself for a moment. But we see a similar type of case going on in Georgia right now, where citizens, not duly authorized law enforcement, just citizens, decided to take the law into their own hands. Here in the Rittenhouse case, he crossed the state line from Illinois into Wisconsin, trying to protect property. And in Georgia, you see a case going on now where citizens thought they saw somebody who might be breaking into homes and was really just a jogger. So if these cases keep coming forward, and imagine will, it's going to make it very hard for people to ascertain what's really self-defense and what's not. In the Rittenhouse case, again, he left home armed with a cache of weapons.
Cache of weapons? An AR-15.
And then claim self-defense when the inevitable happened. So these cases are going to keep coming forward.
No, they're not.
Also, what do you make here of...
Why? Because he got off so easy? Is that what you're telling us?
The judge has said nobody can show clear emotion or else they could be removed. We saw Kyle Rittenhouse just a few moments after that final count was read. He did cry and collapse and then hug his attorney there. He was helped back into his chair. What can you tell us about the uniqueness here of Wisconsin's self-defense laws?
It is a little unique, but more and more states are adopting more of this, I'll call it, liberal view of self-defense, which isn't very strict. So if the person believes that they're in danger, just a subjective nature, if they believe it, then they can.
Positions, Jonna. Right. And you're describing the court of public opinion. And I've always said the court of public opinion has no place inside a court of law, because the court of public opinion is not fact-based. It's furor-based. It's politics-based. It's misinformation-based. And I'm wondering how many of those people sat and watched this trial. I know that Judge Schroeder may not want to have another televised trial in his courtroom again for a million different reasons. But we need more of this, not less, because all of us got inside that courtroom. We got to see the facts for ourselves, much the same way that this jury did. And only if you do that, John, only if you observe these facts and process facts, can you have an opinion that is sound and not one that's full of misinformation and just full of public furor and opinion that is completely contrary to what went down in that courtroom. And if I can just say another thing, we are all entitled to a fair trial. Any defendant is entitled to a fair trial. And Kyle Rittenhouse got a trial that was not always fair. And yet the jury did come back with and did the right thing, in my opinion. But there was a lot of missteps by the prosecution in his case. And despite that, he got a not guilty across the board. So lucky him.
Jonna, thank you for joining us on that. Real quickly, the president just landed returning from Walter Reed, where he had this routine physical colonoscopy this morning as well. He just returned. He spoke briefly to reporters. Peter Ducey reporting to us, and we're trying to get him up right now, that the president was first asked when he arrived about his past comments on Rittenhouse, comparing him to a white supremacist. The president said he stands by what the jury system has concluded, says the jury system worked, but he apparently also said, and the pool reporters noting this, I didn't watch the trial, and the White House has told us that we'll get a formal statement soon. We have not yet received that, but that is the update since the president has just returned. John?
All right, Alexis McAdams interviewed him about a half an hour ago, a little more than that, but let's bring back David Hancock, who's a spokesman for Kyle Rittenhouse and the family. David, it's good to be with you. I wanted to ask a couple of questions. First of all, we know that Kyle has left the court and is headed for a location unknown. What is he up to now? How is he feeling about the verdict? We saw him break down, a lot of emotions clearly that were running through him as the jury read off the verdicts. We saw him hug his counsel as well. What is the plan for the rest of the day for him?
Spend time with his family. It's been a long road. It's been a hard road. I mean, this family has been just repeatedly attacked and with no basis in truth. And now he can be he can be just a young man now. So I think he's just going to spend time with his family, and they are just ecstatic that it came down this way. But I mean, nobody is spiking the football on this. This brought up a lot of issues, at least this case brought up a lot of issues, and specifically to your last speaker's point as it relates to the prosecution. I mean, this needs to be looked at. The conduct of the prosecution in this case and the re-narrating and the revisionist history as we went through this case was despicable and just horrendous. And still, the jury came to the proper and the just verdict of a not guilty across the board.
David, this is Sandra. I'm sorry if my colleague John already asked this question, but have you spoken to Kyle since the verdict was read?
I did not. He was taken out the back door and taken off property quite quickly with his family, just to get out of this.
Have any of them relayed to you what he said or what he's had to say since he left the court?
I looked at Kyle and he looked at me, and it was just one of those, finally, like, Kyle gets to start his life as a young man, as a innocent, as an acquitted, as a not guilty young man who clearly defended himself when he was attacked. And that came out for the past 2 weeks, and that is what, thank God, that the jury came to, and they noticed.
Hey, David, we're probably going to need to take a break in about a minute and 30 seconds briefly. Don't go away, because we want to play back some tape of the president returning from Camp David, who was asked about this. But you said that Kyle gets a chance to get back to his life. But, I mean, his life is never going to be the same.
No, it's not. But everybody who knows Kyle, everybody's going to do everything we can to give him the most normal life that he can possibly have.
David, I'm sorry. Can you just stand by with us? We are told the defense attorney is now speaking outside of the courthouse. Let's listen.
You want the truth?
Yes.
Had to put him on. It wasn't a close call. At certain points, we wondered whether we would put him on. We did. We had a mock jury, and we did 2 different juries, one with him testifying, one without him testifying. It was substantially better when he testified, to a marked degree, and that sealed it. But in Wisconsin, if you don't put a client on the stand, you're going to lose, period.
What do you see as the crucial moment in the trial?
There were a lot. I think.
Sorry, guys.
It's at the beginning, but when Attorney Binger gave his opening statement and said those things that Kyle chased Rosenbaum down, I don't know where that came from to this day. It was ridiculous. And that gave me something to really argue to the jury that this isn't fair. It's not a game. And I think that was huge. Corey, my co-counsel, and I stress the word co-counsel, he was not a second chair, was incredible. We fought over who got to cross-examine Gage Grosskreutz. He won, and he did a better job than I would have.
This case has gotten caught up in issues of racial justice, the Second Amendment, self-defense. What does your team want this verdict to be remembered for, this case to be remembered for?
When I took this case, I was hired by the 2 first lawyers. I'm not going to use their names. They wanted to use Kyle for a cause and something that I think was inappropriate. And I don't represent causes. I represent clients. And the only thing that ended up mattering to me was whether he was found not guilty or not.
Is that what Kyle feels as well? Is that what Kyle wants, or does he?
I believe that's what he wanted. And I told him when I first met him, when he was in custody, that if he was looking for somebody to go off on a crusade, I wasn't his lawyer.
And Mark, throughout the week, you said, I caught you in between the court.
I never talked to you.
That you were nervous, that, you didn't know what the heck was going on in that jury room. Looking back on, all that time waiting, nearly 27 hours to this afternoon, can you kind of walk me through sort of
I expected, we kind of picked amongst ourselves, our wives, our friends, my associates in the building, and I had Tuesday at 4:30, so I was way wrong. Nobody had it going past Thursday, and there was talk today about whether they were going to deliberate on Saturday. I've never seen a jury, and I don't mean this as a slight to them, but they didn't have a lot of questions. We had no information that they ever fought. They were just working through the issues. And, so it was the time that made me nervous. There wasn't any information coming out.
They submitted 5 questions over that whole time. They never asked to rewatch the videos, beyond those 5 questions. Was that concerning the questions?
I was afraid of a compromise. I know it's been reported that we asked for lesser included. We objected to all lesser included. Kyle was questioned on lesser included because he has to be, but that wasn't our wish. That wasn't Kyle's wish. And we, as time went on, were afraid that there would be some horse trading in the jury room. And that's what really concerned us.
And Mark, you were visibly frustrated with the prosecution multiple times.
No.
How would you characterize it?
I was a prosecutor. Corey was a prosecutor. And I never went after somebody like they did. And when they put on the Kandiri brothers, knowing that they were lying, that is a problem. This isn't, as I said in my closing argument, I'm not going to, it's not a game. And you're playing with an 18-year-old kid's life. And they were willing to put those guys on. Detective Howard and Detective Antaramian had both interviewed them, and in their police reports said, we know you're lying. I can't ask that question when they're on the witness stand of the detective because one witness can't comment on another. So they put them on. They knew they were lying. And that's garbage. And I'm thankful we're never going to have to litigate the issue regarding the drone video. But they kept saying, we stipulated to it. We let it in. We agreed to let it in because we saw the quality we were given and the jury couldn't see anything. And then they're saying, well, his first lawyer had it because it was on Tucker Carlson. John Pierce never had that video. We've talked to Fox News. We've talked to Tucker Carlson's show. The video that was on Tucker Carlson's show started right when Rosenbaum threw the bag. It did not start with the part that they showed at the beginning. It's a huge difference. That's what they built their whole case on with that garbage photo. And, maybe you don't expect everything in a trial, ever. And that program that they used and the expert from the crime lab specifically says on the company's blog, artificial intelligence enhancements are not to be used for forensic evidence. And they did it. And our research after it, it would have been the subject of a huge motion. We don't have to do it.
And you said going into this trial, you didn't want this to be about a cause. But in your opinion, what do you think this verdict says about the second?
I don't know that it says. I mean, I personally don't like people carrying AR-15s around. There was so much anger and so much fear in Kenosha on August 25th that people did arm themselves. And, we knew from the beginning that if you read that statute correctly, I know everybody thought I was crazy. If you read the statute correctly, he was legal in having that firearm. And once the evidence came in, the judge threw the charge. They threw the curfew. And those were things that the state wanted to, kind of hang their hat on so they could argue he couldn't be there, he couldn't own the gun.
What was the first thing that Kyle Rittenhouse told you after the verdict?
Thank you.
Mark, with the surviving victim, Jake Grosskreutz, saying in an interview in recent days that watching Kyle testify, it looked like a kid who got caught doing something wrong, I'm paraphrasing. What did Kyle, the family, about how this all played out? Because he repeatedly talked about feeling like he had no choice. But clearly there's
If Mr. Grosskreutz and some of the other people had let Kyle go to the police, there would only be one individual dead. They referred to him, and I talked about it as an active shooter. Anybody can look up the definition of an active shooter from the FBI, law enforcement. He didn't meet it, but the way that those words are so charged, that's what they used. They wanted to paint him as that. I wish nobody died. I wish I never met Kyle Rittenhouse. And I don't mean that because he's a bad client. I just mean because this wouldn't have happened.
whether or not he feels he had to do it. Is he remorseful? Does he feel bad for those families?
I think he does. We've talked about it. There's been so much talk about whether the tears were genuine. All I can say is when we prepared Kyle and we worked on his testimony, there were things we couldn't talk about in my office because it got too emotional and he couldn't handle it. He's in, counseling for PTSD, so he doesn't sleep at night. Remorse, I think, manifests itself some other ways. I don't think he can ever walk out here and say that because of the situation. But I know Kyle Rittenhouse, and I know what he feels.
Mark, along those lines, where does he go from here?
He has to get on with his life the best he can. I think eventually some anonymity will come back to it. I don't think he'll continue to live in this area. I think it's too dangerous. He's had 24-hour security since this happened. We're thankful that the judge protected his address. Everybody in this case, and when I say that, I mean prosecution, defense. To me, it's scary how many death threats we've had. You know, I was answering my phone on the way back from court in Kenosha. My office isn't that far. After the third death threat, I quit answering the phone.
And Mark, what do you say to people who may look at this story and still think that you have no business being in Kenosha that way? What do you say to people who are
He had as much business being there as any of the demonstrators or the rioters. That's all I could say. I mean, there's going to be people who will never agree with that statement, but you know, if we all would just mind our own business a little bit, I think we'd all be better off. And it's a hard lesson to learn, but
couldn't that have been said about Kyle?
It could be. He was asked to be there. He wanted to help the community, and you know, that's the narrative that the state went with. He shouldn't have been there. He was asked to be there by Nick and Dominic, and the Kandiri brothers wanted security. And you know, I'm not trying to blame anyone. I wish he'd separated from Ryan Balch, and we wouldn't be here.
Does he regret coming here to Kenosha?
I don't believe he does. I believe, you know, if he had to do it over again and you said same thing is going to happen and life is going to be put in a living hell for a year and you're going to not know if you're going to be a free man, he would say, I wouldn't go. But we can't undo time.
Mark, the president was just asked about the verdict. He says, I stand by what the jury has to say. The jury system works.
And I'm not laughing at President Biden. What I'm laughing at is a friend of mine who's a lawyer said, he goes, and him and I had done a big case together 7-8 years ago. And he said, do you think this Rittenhouse is going to be bigger than that case? And I said, you know, I do. And he said, why do you say that? And I said, I've never had a case, and I don't think I ever will, where within 2 days or 3 days of one another, you know, the president and the presidential candidate comment on it. And both of them had such different beliefs. President Biden said some things that I think are so incorrect and untrue. He's not a white supremacist. I'm glad that he at least respects the jury verdict. And if the government had any information regarding his cell phone or anything, that he'd been to any of those websites or been online doing that kind of stuff, it would have been introduced in evidence. It wasn't. We were the individuals who released his cell phone, which couldn't be cracked by the FBI because we had nothing to hide.
For those of us that got here a little bit late, can you just kind of reiterate or go over his reaction immediately?
No, I'm not doing reruns.
In any civil actions?
What's that?
Do you plan to represent him in civil actions?
I'm a criminal defense attorney. I don't do civil stuff.
You're a veteran criminal defense attorney. Talk about what's the one thing you learned. If you had to say the biggest takeaway from this case, what you learned.
Every case is different, and every case has surprises. You know, hey, I learned I could wait 24 hours for a verdict.
What about what happens to the $2 million bond?
I suspect there will be a fight over that. You know, John Pierce is the person who posted the bond. All of that money was raised on behalf of Kyle. Lynn Wood and Fight Back say that they're entitled to it. There was, and when I'm using round numbers, but there was $500,000, I think, that came directly from Wendy Rittenhouse from money she had raised. So there's going to be a fight over that. And I'm just thankful that there will be a fight over that, because if he had lost, it wouldn't have mattered.
You know, Kyle had aspirations to be a first responder. That's still...
He wants to be a nurse.
Still wants to be a nurse.
What would you say your biggest takeaway is from this 25+ hour jury deliberation? What do you think that says?
I need to be more patient.
Now that he has been acquitted, can you look back and point to a pivotal moment that was successful for you, that you think created this outcome?
Getting rid of the first 2 lawyers. And, you know, that might be a smart alecky comment, but I mean that. And I got my best friend, Corey, to join, who I trust. And to be able to work with somebody who you don't have to check their work. You don't worry about what they're going to be doing. You give them a project and it's done as good or better as you do yourself. It's priceless.
There's been a lot of commentary on the prosecutor's performance in this case. What would you say being up there with them every day?
You must have got here a little bit late. I've known Tom Binger for a long time. I knew him when he was a civil lawyer. I'm disappointed with some of the things he did, and I've said why.
Such as what?
Putting on the Kandiri brothers when you know they're lying. Changing your prosecution, going with provocation after you say that my client chased him down and shot him in the back.
Hey, Zach, thank you so much for the super chat.
When he's not. You know, justice is done when the truth is reached, and I don't know that it's set up to do that, but a prosecutor is supposed to seek the truth. It's not about winning, and this case became about winning, and that's probably why it got so personal.
How about the judge? What do you say about how the judge handled the case?
You know, I've never seen so much made of so little, and that's not to pick on you guys or anything like that, but I've tried cases as a prosecutor 100 years ago in front of Judge Schrader. I've tried cases as a defense lawyer, and him and I butted heads as a defense lawyer. Judge Schrader gives you a fair trial as a defendant. You don't want him to sentence your client, okay? But in this case, we were looking for a fair trial. And if we lost, we knew what was going to happen. So it wouldn't have mattered whether it was that judge or some other judge. He's getting life in prison. So I'd rather have a fair trial. I thought he gave us a fair trial. You know, everybody got all crazy about the tumbler. Who cares? That has nothing to do with this. I mean, I've seen the tumbler used before. I've seen clerks pull things out and suspicious things happen. Kyle pulled it out. And I'll be real honest. We had every juror scored on a sheet. And we were devastated when those 3 of the 6 jurors were separated from the panel because we thought they were 3 of our strongest jurors. And Kyle pulled their names. So I think it's a good system. You know, I've got a trial in front of him, you know, a big case. And maybe in that one, I'll think he's unfair, but he's a fair judge.
He also said something about, like, in the future, he plans on rethinking the possibility of live coverage to this extent. Given what you guys have gone through, you know, he mentioned that you guys went through a lot. There were threats made to you. What do you think that should be going forward, setting a precedent about?
I don't know about that. You know, I think that I've never done a case that was televised gavel to gavel. I've had cases that have gotten media coverage. I was kind of, I knew this case was big. I had no idea it was going to be this big. I mean, I've gotten calls from people I haven't seen in 25 years. It's just bizarre. And I'll never be able to figure out exactly what it is that caused the interest that it did. I don't think it made the attorneys act different. I don't think it made the judge act different. I suspect when everything cools down, if there was another big case in front of Judge Schrader, he'd let the cameras in.
Mark, will Kyle say anything to the crowd? Is battery down there now, or will you on his behalf? We don't know that there'll be trouble, but you know, there's people gathering. By the time we left, there were more and more people showing up. Do you think anything he might say could make things go better than before?
I don't. The people who are going to end up causing trouble, they don't want to hear from Kyle Rittenhouse. It's, you know, what, remain calm? You know.
What do you think the wider implications of this verdict are?
I don't think it's that kind of case. I mean, you know, when you want to talk about implications and precedent and things like that, is it ever going to happen again? You know, is there ever going to be just a total unrest in Kenosha or some other city, and that's going to happen? You know, I just don't see that. It was a case about self-defense, the right to protect oneself from, you know, Mr. Rosenbaum. Don't want to speak ill of the dead, but he wasn't a nice person, and everybody knows why. And a lot of that didn't come in front of the jury. So I don't know that there's any broader implications. I don't want to make it bigger than it is.
A couple politicians in Wisconsin have used the word vigilante to refer to your client since the verdict came down. How do you react to that?
Maybe they should have watched the trial. Yeah.
I know Kyle Rittenhouse said thank you to you. You said that after the verdict was read. Can you share any more about general reaction from him or his family in that moment?
You know, it's one of those things that anything that's said at this time.
Okay, that works.
It's kind of meaningless.
I had other
we
ones
have to
running.
Take it in, reflect on it, and.
All right, guys, I'm back. Sorry about that.
You know,
I was dealing with some
what's
stuff.
he thanking me for? And I
that
don't
card
mean
getting
that
a
it's
rifle back
sincere, but
with a commie body count of
It
2.
takes a while to process what
Nice.
happened today. I haven't processed it. I don't think I can't answer that question. If I had to guess, and it would be a guess, I don't think they'll stay in Wisconsin.
What's next for you?
I got a trial in a week. I'm going to take a couple of days off and go to the Badger game tomorrow, which I've missed.
Jump around?
Hopefully. I've missed a couple of Badger games because of this trial, and I'm very much – we were afraid we weren't going to get to go because they were going to have them deliberate on Saturday, and I want to see them beat Nebraska.
Do you have any sense to those verdicts much earlier, but maybe just took some extra time to at least leave the impression they really thought through it? And what a quick sudden
I don't believe that. Yeah, I don't believe that. I mean, there was the questions, and I think I said this to some people yesterday when they asked to call off at 4:00. You could see the tenseness in those people, the jurors. At least I could, or I sensed it, who were entering that room, and you know, if they wanted to quit early because I think they were tense, and if there was some early verdict and they were playing all of us for fools, they're great actors and actresses. I don't think that was the case.
Are you going to keep in touch with the Rittenhouse family?
I believe so. I have clients from 30 years ago I still talk to. I get one of my oldest favorite clients. He moved out of Racine, moved to Minneapolis. He texted me congratulations. I talk to him once a month. I try to stay in touch with clients who want to stay in touch with me. I like to see him do well, and I hope that Kyle does.
Do you think that they'll keep a low profile?
I hope so.
What do you think the amount of time that the jury took to do this says about how they handled it?
They took it very seriously. As I said, it's the longest jury I've ever had out. Wow. Can I go home?
Go home. Anything else we haven't asked you?
Mark, do you think Phil would ever talk?
All right, so you have been listening to the defense attorney for Kyle Rittenhouse, Mark Richards, there as he stepped out of the courthouse, saying to say we are relieved would be a gross misunderstatement. He said Rittenhouse is now on his way home. He said he wants to get on with his life. Some really interesting moments there, John, taking in from the attorney, saying that when Rittenhouse pulled the jurors' names out of the tumbler, he eliminated the ones the defense thought were the 3 strongest for them, making the case that this was a very efficient process and that justice ultimately ruled. He also said Joe Biden said things that were so incorrect and so untrue that Rittenhouse is not a white supremacist. And he said about the president, at least he respects the jury verdict.
Yeah, I thought there was a couple of interesting reveals there when he said that the defense was devastated when Kyle Rittenhouse eliminated those 3 jurors. Also, that they began to get concerned about the amount of
the
time
guy yelling
that
in
the
the
jury
background?
verdict was taking. Mark Richards saying that they were worried about a compromise, that there might be some horse trading in the jury room during the negotiations. He didn't get an idea of whether they argued or not, just that they were taking the time going through the process. But ultimately, the deliberations turned out in Kyle Rittenhouse's favor. And as David Hancock was saying, nobody's spiking the football here because 2 people are dead. A third is grievously
I am.
wounded and will need rehabilitation for the rest of his life on that arm, and then the destruction to Kyle Rittenhouse's life as well. But they do believe that justice was served.
Talking about his security going forward, Rittenhouse, he has to get on with his life the best he can. The attorney saying, I don't think he'll continue to live in this area, saying it's just too dangerous. He's had 24/7 security since this all happened. John, great to be covering this breaking news with you for 2 hours. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sandra Smith.
And I'm John Roberts, taking off next week, so I hope you all have a good Thanksgiving. The story with Martha starts right now.
Thank you very much, John and Sandra. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum, breaking right now on the story, not guilty verdicts for Kyle Rittenhouse, as we look at the live scene outside of the courthouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin, a place that we have all become much more familiar with over the course of this trial and over the remembrance last summer of the violence that spilled into those streets and what we saw take place on that August evening in 2020. So we have just heard from his attorney moments ago. We heard some of what his takeaway was in terms of this case. And as we just watched him talk a little bit about some of the different elements of it, one being the fact that Kyle Rittenhouse was allowed to pull the names of the jurors out who would become alternates. And that was very controversial. And they said, look, those are three of the jurors that we had hoped would be on it. So just an interesting side note. And everybody talking about how Kyle Rittenhouse is about to get on with the rest of his life. But when he was acquitted, it was extremely emotional. He started shaking.
Kyle, if you're watching this, you want to read a book, hit me up.
Into the chair. There's that moment. There's his mom. Well, she's off to the left in the background. It just... there she is. His mom is in that left-hand corner there, and you see the tears on her face as well. His attorney jumped in and held him and hugged and, sort of took him through some breathing exercises. It's almost impossible to imagine the emotional impact of what this young man has been through over the course of this trial. And there he is trying to catch his breath when he's told that he's got his life back. It was either, potentially 60 years in prison for Kyle Rittenhouse or freedom. And right now he is in a car and leaving that scene. And he is a free young man beginning to look forward to his life in college, which he looks forward to in the fall. And there's the family as Kyle Rittenhouse's family reacts to this. Alexis McAdams has been covering this for us from the courthouse. And she did an excellent interview a short time ago with the family's spokesperson, getting immediate reaction from him. He also was very emotional, very caught up in the moment. Alexis, what's the latest from Kenosha this afternoon?
Martha, very emotional, but also he said that the family spokesperson, that is, that this is not a celebration at this point for either Kyle Rittenhouse, his mom, or his sisters, who, as you mentioned, broke down in that courtroom. They say Kyle Rittenhouse just wants to move forward now with his life, leaving Kenosha, Wisconsin due to safety concerns because they were preparing, as well as some local businesses were, for unrest here in the area. I have to tell you, though, on the ground, it's a lot more calm than I was expecting. Thought we'd hear at least or see a lot more action. So that's kind of what's happening right now. And as for what happened inside of that courtroom, those emotions that we've been talking about, Kyle completely breaking down there at one point, even grabbing his knees as they read
I would
verdict,
say
all
a
guilt,
small chance of riots until it gets
counts. And as he
cooler.
broke down, you could also
Maybe
see his
some
mother
angry
and his two
words and maybe
sisters
some
there
rocks being
crying
thrown. I
as
don't
they
think there's going to be a
listened there
chance
to
of
the judge
fires tonight.
reading that
I
verdict.
don't think
Kyle
it's too
Rittenhouse
cold.
not guilty on all 5
Too
counts.
cold.
Very
It's
emotional
not
after
riot
all
season, not
charges were
riot
dropped.
weather.
Take a listen.
And the weather will
As to
get
the
worse.
fourth count of information, Anthony Huber, we the jury find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we the jury find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty.
Now, a few key points in this trial that we've been talking to the Rittenhouse family about throughout this have been a couple of the people who testified. That includes
you guys want to
Gage
see behind the
Grosskreutz.
scenes?
He was one of the people who actually took the stand.
I'm gonna read you my article.
Person that was shot by Kyle Rittenhouse. 3
I
people
read
shot
my
that
article
night.
out.
2 of them were killed. Grosskreutz taking the stand here in Kenosha County, testifying that he was just defending himself that night. Now, take a listen, though, to what it was like when we heard more about if it was those deliberations continuing, because as those jurors tried to answer those questions, was it self-defense or did he provoke the shootings? This is Dave Hancock.
This verdict from this jury, they came back and I believe they were cerebral and they thought about every single piece of the jury instructions. And so justice was done for Kyle. He gets to live a life as a free young man.
Now, as for the unrest that people were bracing for, we haven't seen much of that on the ground, but the governor of Wisconsin, Martha, releasing this statement moments ago saying there's no verdict that will be able to bring back the lives of Anthony Hoover
I'm gonna
and
read
Joseph
this.
Rosenbaum or heal Gage Grosskurt's injuries, just as no verdict can heal the wounds or trauma experienced by Jacob Blake and his family. No ruling today changing our reality in Wisconsin that we have to work toward equity here, accountability and justice that communities across our state are demanding and deserve. Back out here in front of that courthouse, take a look behind me. You can see there's just.
All right, I'm going to read this. You guys, let me know what you think. This is my article that I'm about to submit. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury in the Kyle Rittenhouse case returned a verdict of not guilty on all charges. Woohoo! All right, let me just do this. Okay, nope. Hold on. Nope, that's a quote. That's a quote. That's a quote. All right. There we go. The jurors found Kyle Rittenhouse. Found that Kyle Rittenhouse. Okay. I'm doing my corrections. The jurors found that Kyle Rittenhouse was justified in his shooting of 3 people. The jury believed that the 3 men attacked Rittenhouse, and the jury thought that he felt that the 3 men had threatened his life. The jury took 4 days to decide Mr. Rittenhouse's fate. How does that sound so far? Rich?
Sounds good.
Okay. I'm just wondering. I'm going to be talking here. I just need to get this done. The first man. Okay, left out a word. First man that attacked Rittenhouse after he put. The first man attack. Okay, no. Wait. The first man attacked Rittenhouse after he put out a fire. Let me change this. In a dumpster, Joseph Rosenbaum, a convicted pedophile, attacked and chased Rittenhouse through a parking lot, through a car lot. After Rosenbaum pursued Rittenhouse through the parking lot, he turned and fired his AR-15 and killed Rosenbaum. An angry mob chased Rittenhouse down the street. He stumbled and fell to the ground as he was trying to evade the mob.
Well, I think he was trying to turn himself into the police. He was trying to get to the police to turn himself in.
And get to the police. Okay. Second man shot was Anthony Huber. Mr. Huber was a domestic abuser, and it usually I don't try, usually I don't try to, I'm kind of, I don't know. Mr. Huber was a domestic abuser and attacked Rittenhouse with a skateboard. Rittenhouse shot and killed Huber. The third man didn't die, but was shot in the arm. Gage Grosskurtz pointed a loaded Glock at Mr. Rittenhouse while he was on the ground. Rittenhouse pointed his AR-15 at Mr. Grosskurtz. He put up his hands, and Rittenhouse didn't pull the trigger of his rifle until Grosskurtz pointed his pistol at Rittenhouse. Grosskurtz was hit in the arm and was disarmed by the shot. Grosskurtz admitted on the stand that Rittenhouse didn't fire until he leveled the Glock at him. This moment was a critical turning point in the case. Some legal experts believe Kurtz's comment doomed the prosecution's case. Rittenhouse also took the stand to defend himself. Rittenhouse broke down in tears when walking the defense court through the actions of the faithful night. The court had to adjourn to give Mr. Rittenhouse time to recover from the emotional. Usually when I go through this, I end up with about 100 more words than when I started.
John, can I ghostwrite for the ghostwriter?
No. Rittenhouse came off as believable. I already submitted my stuff, so look for stuff. The prosecution cross-examined Rittenhouse for hours. A prosecutor came off as a bully. I think he really did. Off as a bully. The prosecutor attacked Mr. Rittenhouse for exercising his right to remain silent. This attack provoked a stinging rebuke from the judge. He removed the jury from the court and ripped into the prosecution for questioning Mr. Rittenhouse's use of a constitutional right. The attack by the prosecution almost caused a mistrial. Gun rights groups have celebrated the verdict. They believe that the decision is a victory for self-defense. Alan Gottlieb, founder of the Second Amendment Foundation, claims this is a victory for the Second Amendment. His quote's in there, blah, blah, blah. And Kyle Rittenhouse will now move on with his life. All right. Remember how I said I wasn't going to write about this unless I was asked? There you go. I was asked. All right, guys, what do you think? I want to hear your opinions out there. Do you think this is a good thing, bad thing? Why am I even asking if it's a bad thing? Of course it's a good thing.
We can't over rely on the justice system to resolve them because, as we see, that it simply doesn't.
Yeah. And that is the burden that rests on the jury and these 12 individuals who have dealt with this over the last several days and, in fact, over several weeks in this process. I want to bring in Robert Bianchi, who is the criminal defense attorney and former head New Jersey prosecutor. So from the prosecutor's perspective, Bob, tell me, there's been a lot of discussion about the job that they did and question about Richard's, but I didn't like a lot of the things that he did in this courtroom.
Yeah, Martha, we kind of talked about this before on one episode. First off, as a former homicide prosecutor, having gone out and investigated cases before they're charged, it's shocking to me that within a matter of days before the autopsy results are
Did the sound cut out, or was that me?
My feed dropped. It's frozen. Oh, it's moving again. So if you want to, actually the source dropped.
All right, be right back. All right, guys, we got the my article should be dropping pretty soon. They've got the video and they were just waiting for me to get my article done because that's what I do. I do whatever they tell me to do. All right. How long do you want to go? Do we just want to end it?
I don't know if there's any real big point on continuing. I'm not sure what else we have to contribute. I'm looking for, the outside of the courthouse or what's going on the streets. Realistically,
There's not a lot going on. I've been looking for that. There's not a lot going on. I'm going to miss you guys broadcasting every day for hours and hours. Actually, that's not true.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but that's not true.
This claim of self-defense. At one point in time on my show, I was listening to a witness testify, and I had to ask my producer because I had just jumped on, is this a defense witness that was called out of turn? Because this was actually Rosenkreutz, who was actually giving testimony that he was the one being pursued.
Good commentary.
He was the one being attacked. They felt that he was in danger. They were throwing rocks at him. Shots were being fired. He's down on the ground. People are going at him.
Oh.
It's a perfect self-defense claim.
Yeah, indeed it was.
Six Semper Tyrannis.
That was Gage Grosskreutz, who was shot in the arm, and he also said that he pointed his pistol at Kyle Rittenhouse.
Nick Freitas is saying that Kyle Rittenhouse should
began,
sue.
Which a lot of people thought that the trial could have been
should
in that
sue
moment.
Biden.
Oh yeah, hell
Andy,
yeah.
The question of whether or not the prosecution sort of went too far.
John, I don't know if you have a better connection. If you want to try and pull this feed in, but it's not going well here.
Yeah, because you use a potato for your internet.
With regard to the death of Joseph Rosenbaum, and I thought it was interesting. And then it goes on down the line, and with 5 counts, and then there were the options for second-degree counts in some of these as well. And I watched Mark Richards closely. As you see them,
let's watch a feed from Wisconsin.
I mean, you could hear a pin drop.
You're gonna pull something in?
From Wisconsin.
An instigator on the scene, while the defense, they stuck through their arguments that it was a life or death situation for the then 17-year-old. In their opening arguments, they showed video, photos. They quickly tailored the narrative of what they claim happened that night, and clearly the jury, as we now know today, agrees with the self-defense claims that the defense made along this trial. But again, what the judge in this case, multiple times he reiterated the importance of maintaining public confidence. And, when we talk about the jury exited the courthouse now about an hour ago. I can tell you the jurors, they had their faces covered. They understand the gravity of the decision
Did
that they've
MSNBC
made.
follow
they
him
took
again?
time in deliberations. And when they exited the courthouse, they did not want to speak to any reporters. They were heavily guarded. You can imagine that they are probably, having a sigh of relief to no longer be on this jury, but they took that assignment very seriously. 2 days ago, when we first realized just how much deliberations were going on, they were going straight into the courthouse, walking into that deliberation room. There was no greeting from the judge. There was no, let's get things started, welcome to the jury. No, it was straight to work in this case.
The judges did a great job.
So, again, reflecting on just this trial overall, that is a quote that sticks out to me, is the judge saying that it was important to maintain public confidence in this trial. And I think that the jury really listened to that, which is why potentially that's why they took so long in deliberations.
They were doing their due diligence. Angelica Sanchez, we appreciate all your great reporting this entire case. Thank you.
Let's get out to Bill Miston. Bill, there are still parts of this city that are boarded up. We just got a statement in from Uptown Kenosha saying we believe that the high-profile case verdict of Kyle Rittenhouse does not change the city of Kenosha from moving forward with its diligent work efforts for equity, unity, and equality in the Uptown Kenosha community. That is the area that was so badly burned during the riot. This community's forever changed what happened last summer in 2020.
Ben, to what Angelica was saying about this case and wanting to keep public confidence in it, you could also say that there is a lot of public opinion about it and how this all started with obviously the shooting of Jacob Blake. And throughout the trial, we saw questions from people who were outside of the courthouse.
Oh man, I got a book for next week.
And that continues this evening. And what we see here now, as you can see, is just some things are breaking up here. I know there was a group of people that kind of marched through. Those people have since left. Still some points of contention here. There was a man who had been seen kind of throughout the last several days, kind of being in the middle of arguments and in some way instigating some things, and at one point saying some pretty offensive things to a woman who was wearing a headscarf, was Muslim, and that kind of stirring some things up out here, and that having since kind of resolved itself. But there is a lot of sense of resolve, though, for those that live in this community to move on and try and continue on with this. I mean, there are people that are here from all across the country, if not the world, media members, as well as people who are here as trial tourists in some way, wanting to see what was going on. And those people will leave, but there will be people like us who have been reporting on this and report on this for the community. Those that live in this community will still be here and telling the stories that will continue on of what will move forward for this community and how they will move forward. And obviously there's a lot of scars, both physical as well as emotional scars left from those nights here in Kenosha, as well as what has transpired since these shootings and throughout this entire trial. And there is a lot of public opinion about what occurred in the courtroom today, and opinions about whether or not the jury made the decision that maybe people wanted them to make. But that, at the end of the day, is the system. And as you saw, whether it was statements from President Biden, Governor Tony Evers, former Governor Scott Walker, those in the community, there is a sense that this is the decision that was made, and those jurors had a very, very heavy hand or heavy heart, no doubt, in trying to figure out what was the right answer, and this is what they came up with.
Our Bill Miston reporting live for us. We're happy to see that it looks like all things are peaceful and quiet outside the courthouse, with more media members than protesters out there this afternoon.
Bill said that he'll be staying here in the days ahead. We'll be staying here in the days ahead. One person who will not be staying here in the days ahead,
Kyle
Rittenhouse, his attorney, saying he's going to leave the state. He doesn't feel safe here. He's had death threats, and he will be moving outside of Wisconsin. We don't know when that will happen, but don't expect to see him in the grocery store. I want to go out to Aaron Maben. He was live in the courthouse when this happened, in the courtroom when that verdict came down. Aaron, you described hearing gasps.
Yeah, you know, just before the verdict was read, the judge basically told everyone inside the courtroom that he didn't want any reaction. But, you know, that's something hard. It's hard to hold back emotions, especially for family members. So there were gasps, especially from Wendy Rittenhouse, and who is Kyle Rittenhouse's mother, and his sisters too. When the verdict was being read, we saw that Kyle was crying and shaking and fell down to his knees, and actually had to be lifted up by an attorney. And I was looking back at Wendy Rittenhouse, his mother. She was holding on tight to David Hancock.
Kyle needs to grow her hair and dye his hair, grow a beard and dye his hair blonde.
She was holding on tight to him, and she also gasped and made some sort of loud noise when the verdict was read. On the other side, there was the great aunt of Anthony Huber, and also his girlfriend and the girlfriend of Joseph Rosenbaum. They were quiet throughout the verdict being read. And then as they walked outside of the courthouse, there were tears in the eyes of Hannah Giddings, who's Anthony Huber's girlfriend. They really didn't comment much. She had tears in her eyes as they were just surrounded by deputies, offensive deputies, walked from outside of the courthouse to their cars. We know what's going to happen next with Kyle Rittenhouse. His family spokesperson said he's headed to college. We don't know what's next for the family members of Anthony Huber, Joseph Rosenbaum, as they still process a verdict that we all learned a little bit ago. Ben and Stephanie?
So many emotions running high in this case. You see on the left-hand side of your screen there, Kyle Rittenhouse's reaction when all 5 charges against him, he received those not guilty verdicts. So, you know, emotions on both sides of this case, you know, it's been ongoing for more than a year now. There's been so much media attention, so much national coverage, even international coverage. And it's good to see, at least at this moment, at almost 2:30 on this Friday afternoon, that things have remained peaceful in Kenosha. And Kyle Rittenhouse, he's going home tonight, a free man, and he's not going to prison for life.
We do know the National Guard remains on standby. It doesn't look like they're needed right now. As we said, there's only people in the dozens down there, and they are acting very calm, but they're still in areas like Milwaukee and Waukesha counties to be called up if needed. But police really haven't had to do anything out there today. So stay with us. We're going to go back to our regular programming right now, but our coverage continues online on fox6now.com and on your Fox 6 News app.
We'll see you at 4.
That's good. I don't think there's any more that we can really do here.
Well, do you like my ticker?
I'm a few ticker. I'm working on memes.
Working on memes?
Yeah.
Kenosha forecast, decreasing chance of light riots during the early evening hours, steadily decreasing in the overnight hours.
Right. I mean, I honestly, I'm gonna kill this. I honestly want to thank every single person that stuck with us and watched day in, day out. It was a lot of fun. It's something that I probably won't ever do again because it's hard, man.
Yeah,
it went like 10 hours.
Yeah, we put in a lot of work. You know, we do have, you know, at least you and I have a little bit of flexibility to be able to jump in and do these things. This isn't our job or our career, and it's not like we're making big money. So the super chats are appreciated. You know, also if you can't super chat, you know, a subscription is always appreciated. A thumbs up, a share. So I want to thank everybody, because if it really wasn't for you guys, it'd just be John and I on the phone talking to each other.
And honestly, that I'm serious. It would be. And then I would have to talk to Rich by myself, and that would be really depressing.
Unless we have a three-way with Dark.
No, stop talking about different three-ways with Dark, man. I don't know what the hell's wrong with you guys. I have no idea what the hell's wrong with you guys. But yeah, you and Dark can have your little thing going on, but don't bring me into this.
Okie doke. All right, John. Now that I know your borders.
Yes, that's definitely my borders.
I still can't get over
You don't
how
toxic patch goes out there. I don't want a damn patch to be made. I ain't paying for that if you make it.
See, now you did it.
No. I'd say I'm not paying for it. So
you don't know. He might just release a patch.
No. So yeah, but thank you guys. If you guys need anything, you know how to contact me. You can see me on John Crump News, which you might be watching on, or John Crump Live. And Rich, give out your channel on all of your social. Oh yeah. By the way, I'm gonna link the Discord. So if you guys want to join the Discord, we have a lot of fun there, and you guys should just come because hey, why not, right?
Did Dark hear my last comment?
It was Dark.
Is it going
Also,
in 7
go to
times, 8 times?
Crumpy.com. I got a bunch of affiliate links that are going to go up there. So if you want to help out the channel, you can do one of the affiliate links as well. With that, I guess we actually hold on. If you guys want a knife, I want to show you a really cool knife. Then you guys can go. I'll put that in there. It's an affiliate link. Actually, you know what? Screw it. Just go to crumpy.com. There's something that says deal of the day or something like that, and just pick one of those up.
So if you want to follow me,
right when we were leaving, there you go. Hi, Dark.
Hey guys.
Hey, Dark. How are you?
Excellent.
You didn't hear my comment about a three-way with me, you, and Crumpy, did you? I mean, a phone conversation. I don't know what Crump was thinking, but
I did not hear that. I was not privy to this information.
You probably don't want to be privy to this information.
I'd prefer not to be, but I'll take it. You guys like my my work setup? I make my my stream room look like almost like a professional.
You should just like one wall be work wall, the other wall be Dark Mavis wall.
You know, I considered that, but it's just too much other stuff would be in view. Like, I have a gun safe on each side of the room. I have a Gadsden flag there. I have, it won't work. But I just wanted to say thank you guys for running this on my channel. Thank you for everyone that joined in.
No problem. No problem. We ran it on your channel because people wanted me to run it on your channel.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ran it on of course we ran it on Rich's channel.
Who?
But then we ran it on Cody's channel.
Yeah.
And then Gorillas and Guns channel.
Yep.
So we're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 YouTube channels.
You got to give
a Twitch
people
channel
what
and
they
a
want.
Facebook channel.
Nice, man. That's awesome. Yeah, I think I'll be doing a little bit more on locals too. I know all my shit goes up to Utreon as well, but I'll be doing some stuff on locals, and I got some cool stuff coming up. The giveaway will be scheduled within a week, so I have some other things coming in from some other really cool companies, and thank you. And for those who are watching that are not on my channel, I'm Dark with DLD After Dark. And we're a dope ass channel, do a bunch of dope ass shit. So check us out.
Awesome. All right, Rich.
and John took me out.
You're back.
You're gonna learn.
Yeah. Well, when anticipated, it doesn't happen. Maybe that's the clue. YouTube.com/FlyingRich, FlyingRich.com. Instagram is FlyingRich_official, because there's a rat that's called Flying Rich and it's not me.
No. All right. You got your computer over there. You can play Roblox on. I bought you some Roblox stock, Matthew. You're part of Roblox, and I bought you a bunch of Roblox stock.
You'll be grateful when you're older, as long as our world makes it up to that
What
point.
days why can I watch do it on your phone?
No.
And we have Roblox on?
All right, guys. We will see you guys later. Thank you so much. Hey, Matthew, look at the camera and say Wolverines.
Wolverines.
So you got to yell it.